This is Robert Martellacci, the MindShare Learning Report, Canada's learning and technology e-magazine, and welcome to This Week in Canadian EdTech special edition. I'm honored to have join me for a MindShare learning moment my fine colleague, Tim Gard, who is a STEM educator with the Toronto District School Board, Chief Judge for Canada's Classroom of the Future Challenge, and Chief Digital Learning Officer of the MindShare Learning Report. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sorry, that was a mouthful, but you do a lot, and always value your insight and thought leadership as a master educator. And first of all, you're looking well. You're looking relaxed at this Spanish cafe background-ish.
Yeah, I thought I would, when I was in Spain, I took a lot of pictures because I do that sort of part-time photography. Yeah. And I thought, man, I need to put something in the background that when I'm doing these sorts of things, I remind myself, hey, I can pretend I'm somewhere else.
That's right. And it's all about having a vision of where you want to be and where you want to go.
There you go.
And most challenging times in our lifetime, most transformational technological period we've ever experienced. And, you're at a elementary French immersion school in Toronto. How are the kids doing?
Yeah, I've had a number of Zoom meetings with them, and sorry, not Zoom. Sorry, I shouldn't say that, with the TDSB. A number of Google Meet sessions with them, and yeah, they're doing well. They're resilient. Kids are resilient. They're always finding something to do. Of course, teachers are providing them with a lot of things that they can do at home, of course, to make sure that we keep that continuity of learning going. And so they seem to be, for the most part, really, engaged and finding different things to do and keeping themselves busy, and lots of creative different things. I was talking to a few kids today, and one was saying, I'm involved in all sorts of crafts. We have a family games night, and we do different things like that. So that's great. I mean, there's a lot of real great family time, which of course is one of the benefits of this sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, STEM is your thing in math. And, I'm hearing, in some school districts, emails from teachers with worksheets, which is a little odd at this time. You can create project-based opportunities. And, I saw an article that we shared earlier on our top 10 that went out this morning around math and integrating math with baking, math with landscaping. Perhaps you can talk a little bit about that SAMR model concept and true transformation and just some tips for teachers to simply make that leap.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, if you're a teacher and you're really new to this, or you're not really comfortable with this kind of context, then you're going to start low, and we expect that. But we're hoping also that during this forced capacity building, that if you're going to start there, you're going to mature and you're going to go through that sort of SAMR piece. I tend to refer to another model that I prefer over SAMR, because SAMR can be quite
confusing.
It's not. Yeah, I like the
to a layman. Yeah.
That Sonny McGann put out, where it's this sort of transformative, the T3 stages, and he calls that upper stage the transcendent stage, where there's inquiry and there's social entrepreneurship, and that's where you're using technology, where the kids are using technology to do things they would never be able to do without the technology. So it becomes really powerful, and kids feel like, hey, I'm really being able to showcase things that are innovative, that are new, and I'm engaged, and so on and so forth. So yeah, you can start at that low level, but hopefully with support and with the kind of professional development, teachers can move through those stages and realize, hey, I can really do some cool things here.
And you can keep it pretty simple as well. You don't have to go from beginner to advanced. I mean, it's a transition, and the last thing you want to be trying to do is, get too complex, and Absolutely. If you're not really that proficient.
That's right.
Technologically.
And I think we have to remember too that the students who we're dealing with are, already there in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
So you're creating that context where teachers and students can work together. And even in this context, when you have the Google Meet sessions or whatever you're using in your particular district for video conferencing, you know, there's this opportunity to talk. I mean, I've had a few Google Meet sessions and I have them weekly for a number of classes. And, you know, I ask them, what is it that you want? You know, given the context of STEM, and I've heard all kinds of great things. Number one, kids want to collaborate. They want to be able to work with their friends, realizing, hey, I can collaborate because I understand the technology. There are also students who want to have those hands-on projects where they can, you know, come off of the technology, excuse me, and maybe if they can go out into their yard or in a bigger room and work on something hands-on, and then come back and report, which I heard a lot of as well. So there's listening, right? Student voice, what they're saying, and really feeding into that.
And storytelling is in vogue, isn't it? That's huge right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, you work from your particular current context, your situation in life, so to speak, and why not take advantage of that and harness it? So storytelling, creating your own stories, and so on and so forth. So in language, that definitely is quite important.
You know, it's interesting. The CIO of the Coquitlam School District, where we hosted our conference this past fall, was on a webinar this past week that we shared. And he explained why they spend so much time sharing and traveling and going to visit other districts and countries and conferences. And it's the learning.
Absolutely.
It's the learning through sharing.
Absolutely.
It's the reflection.
Yeah.
It's the relationship building. So I somehow need to capture. I've got tons of these badges from all the conferences I've gone to, and I want to capture them digitally somehow, because there's a lot, and it says a lot. It says a lot about, you know, your willingness to be a lifelong learner in a sense.
Well, I think it was Steve Jobs that said, listen, go and try different things, experience different things, because you never know what you go and experience that might have an impact on what you're currently doing in your life. And I think that applies to education. You know, the world is becoming smaller and smaller because of the digital technologies, and it will increasingly get smaller, I think. And so we need to be able to share, you know, with each other and, you know, become just not problem solvers in our own context. And I think if you look at this pandemic, you know, the whole world is rushing towards developing a vaccine. And sometimes you think, man, wouldn't it be cool if you could all sort of collaborate in this one large environment and share your expertise in your different areas? And would that possibly make a difference? It would be complex, but definitely, I think this is the way the world's going, that we're going to have to work together.
Absolutely. And Thomas Freeman, the author of The World is Flat and many other books, I caught a webinar from him earlier this week through the Harvard Business Review. And he was talking about, so he was asked, how, you know, what's next? What's the world going to look like? There is a tendency to think that we're all going to kind of retreat and countries are going to be less open. But the reality is perhaps that might be from a, you know, trade perspective, but from a collaboration and communication perspective, you know, Zoom and Teams and Google Meet have enabled, you know, us to continue to collaborate. I can't imagine what it would be like without those tools. So it's, you know, trying to anticipate what to expect beyond COVID is really a challenge, and I think a theme that we're going to focus on for our EdTech Summit this fall. And I'm hoping that by October 29th, we'll be able to connect and meet up. But really, it's, you know, we really need to reflect and try to find a balance on what, you know, take the good out of this, because there's a lot of learning that's come out of it. You know, clearly remote learning is not the panacea. We know that. Blended learning, more blended. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Well, listen, I mean, when there's a problem, or when there's, you know, something that's happening like this, a pandemic, of course, that creates opportunity. It really depends on, that old saying, you look at the glasses as half empty or half full. And I think we have to learn from this as a world community, and as an educational community, we have to learn from this. And there has been, I called it earlier, forced capacity building. People have to do it. But I think what's happening is, from what I've seen, is that, teachers are starting to realize, hey, I didn't realize I could do this. I didn't realize that this was engaging as and empowering as it is. And so, you're never going to stop innovation. It doesn't matter who you are. And I think regardless of that sort of closed mindset, we do need to be very open-minded about how we can come together as a world community, as an educational community, and reach out. And as long as people aren't in it for themselves, but it's really more of a pure community piece, then we're gonna make some strides forward.
It's fascinating. I never imagined that we'd get to a point where we could say that 100% of the teachers are using some form of technology. I like the notion that you came up with the forced capacity building, but it's made an impact. And you're right. I'm discovering things that I haven't. We're all learning something new, right? Absolutely. This is the greatest opportunity in our lifetime to do something different than cooking more. I'm learning Adobe Premiere, which is highly complex. They've pretty much mastered the ability to piece together a video. And the sky's the limit. It comes down to having a growth mindset and that notion of lifelong learning. And how do you instill that in kids is a question I asked you.
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to instill it in them. I mean, I think they have it. You just have to reap it. And you have to give them that opportunity. I think kids are naturally curious and naturally want to sort of expand beyond their basic sort of context and reach out. The more you give them those opportunities, you're always blown away by what they come up with and the way they think. And as long as you don't have that sort of teacher-centered sort of look at each education, you're kind of making it more about the student, and less talking and more listening. I think that's important, right? If we go into these contexts and really listen to the kids and, give them an opportunity and they say, okay, what do you think about this? How do you envision changing this for your benefit? And they will give you the feedback.
Absolutely.
That's been my experience. And so I think it's about creating, those global competencies about communication. It's not a one-way thing. It's a two-way thing.
Right.
Same with being creative. It's a two-way thing. But listening and responding, and I think more listening than talking. And that's
it's interesting. When I think of the growth mindset, I think of being a proud graduate of the Toronto District School Board, George Harvey, secondary at the time. Mrs. Fogarty wrote in my yearbook, and I don't know if she's still around. Probably not. She's probably long retired. But to Mrs. Fogarty, my English teacher, wrote in my yearbook in grade 12, the only sign of life is growth, and drew a little flower. I'm like, what the hell is she trying to tell me? I pondered that one a lot. And that I attribute to impacting me in a big way from a growth mindset. So teachers need to realize that the impact they make on kids through words and what they say.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And you're nurturing your learning environment, and as to your point, you're creating fertile ground so that it can grow. And there's lots of nuances to how you do that, and we could talk forever about it. But
yeah,
I think, creating those safe environments, those opportunities where they feel safe to explore, safe to take risks, and you really listen. You'd be amazed at what you see. Yeah.
Well, it's never been a more exciting time to be in education. And
I think so.
2020, back to school is going to be a most fascinating time, no doubt. And hopefully we'll be seeing each other face to face and not, remotely in the not too distant future. But, stay healthy, stay safe. And thank you so much for your time today, Tim Gard.
Thank you. You too. Stay safe.
That was Tim Gard, STEM educator with the Toronto District School Board. My name is Robert Martellacci, the MindShare Learning Report. Be sure to check out www.mindsharelearning.com to get your latest issue. And until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep the learning curve steep.